Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Lou Parker, and this is part of a Be Kind & Co. video series. We're here with Matthew Soloman. Matthew and I have coordinated and been talking about kindness and masculinity. Matthew, if you're not familiar with him, is an author. He's also a relationship coach and also an award-winning filmmaker. And your book, what's it called?
Man School.
Man School, which is
with
very cool.
In the Me Too era.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit as well. But we all know, if you follow Be Kind & Co. and a lot of my social media, I talk about kindness and I talk about the importance of kindness. And a lot of times people think that kindness is a weakness, but I love to say that kindness is a strength. And a lot of times we think about that from a self-care aspect or from a woman's point of view. But today we are talking all men, which I love.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this concept of the nice guy always finishes last. Where did that come from? It is so not true.
Well, it's the origins of that. I mean, if we, I don't know if we want to get into patriarchy and that whole discussion, but it's a very old school kind of idea that you have to be ruthless to get ahead. You know, like you said, nice guy finishes last. You got to step over people. You have to, you know, especially as a man, you got to just do what you need to do to get what you need to get. And it doesn't really serve anybody. You know, I mean, you might get some wins, that you might make some money doing that, but at the end of the day, what's the quality of life that you're living and the people around you?
It's sort of like a short-term race, right? It's a short-term race because in the end, like you're saying, at the end of the journey, you haven't been nice or kind.
Right.
Right.
And if anything, your relationships are toxic because you're not trusted. You're not going to trust people because you've had to step over them. So it just creates this whole thing that just offsets everything.
When we talk about masculinity and kindness, what would define a kind man?
That's great, because there's a distinction between nice and kind, right? So I think of it as, when we talk about nice guys, they're accommodating. We're kind of we don't have boundaries. We're going out of our way just to please everybody. Whereas a kind man knows himself. He knows where his edges are, where his boundaries are, and he makes a concerted effort to consider other people, not necessarily catering to them. You can be kind and say no, but it takes other people and situations into consideration.
We've seen, a lot of times, I was raised in the South, and a lot of times my brothers were taught to open the door for a woman, or, open the car door for a woman, or say yes ma'am in certain places of the country. What are some of those things? If guys are out there and say, how can they be kind? I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do. You can, buy the person in front of you coffee, all the cliche things, give, the homeless person some money. But there are other little tricks of the trade, right? That can really make not only yourself feel great, but somebody else. You can change someone's life by being kind.
With a smile.
Yes.
You can change
and that's
somebody's
free.
Life. Yes. Smiles are free. I mean, it's generosity. It's not, for the work that I do is not so much about what are the things we can do, because we can come up with lists, but it's really, who do I want to be? How do I want to be with people? What's the effect that I really want to have on somebody, that's important to me, or somebody I just met, and can I make them important to me? So, we could rattle off a list.
Yeah.
And, what I always say is, what would kindness look like for you? If you are choosing to be somebody who's kind, what might you do? Because then it makes it more personal, and then it's more of a genuine expression. Because if I'm sitting here thinking, okay, if I'm going to be kind, if I'm being kind, what might I do right now? What might I say to you right now?
A compliment.
A compliment.
Right.
Yeah.
I've always heard the saying that to give at least 3 compliments a day to strangers or to coworkers or to friends. I like your shirt, or you have great hair, or whatever it is, and it makes that person feel good. And you were saying the smile. One of my personal things that I love to do is when I'm walking down the street in Los Angeles with my dog, or maybe just on the street running errands, is that when I see someone coming toward me and their head is down, or they maybe are just not doing the eye contact, or they look sad, is that I say, hi or good morning, or I smile at them. And it's so amazing how people come out of their bubble or their mind or their thought and they look up and smile back at me. And and people have done it to me before too, and I could be in a funky, like, negative space in my head or my heart, and someone does that or says, how are you today? But they really mean it, and you can tell they really mean it. Or they say something nice to you. It changes my perspective of my day, right? And I don't feel so alone. So that's where I think kindness is really a great, something that's free and easy, and that we can practice every single day.
And and it's such a great example, because the flip side of that is knowing that sometimes, especially with my book Man School, relating with women in the Me Too era and all the Me Too stories and conversations around women feeling safe and wanting to feel safe. And so a lot of times women have told me that when you all walk down the street, you are avoiding eye contact because you don't want to be somebody to speak with you inappropriately or
catcalled
or like any of that. And so what I can do as a man, being kind, is to give you that space and to just be very gracious and understanding, to where even if I say hi and you don't react or respond, that's okay.
What about folks out there, Matthew works with relationships, a lot of relationships. So oftentimes when you start to get into a relationship, or you've had a long-term relationship, sometimes we stop listening to one another, right? And I think listening is so key. Obviously, my job as a journalist is to listen. Sometimes, like when I'm interviewing you, is to let you finish your thought and to really listen, and not to think, what am I going to say next, or what question? What did Matthew say? What is Matthew wanting to share with me? Take that in, and then can we do that in our personal relationships?
Absolutely. And the thing is, we're not trained how to listen. We're not taught. We're taught how to, like you said, debate. We're taught how to, like, okay, what am I going to say next? So if we're having a conversation and you're speaking and I'm speaking, I'm also thinking about what you're saying, and you're thinking about what I'm saying. And then I have a judgment, and you have a judgment. We have like 6 different conversations going on at one time. So if we can stop that and really tune into, like you said, what is the thing that you want me to know? And the way I teach is, what is the experience that you have that you're sharing with me? So I'm listening more to connect with you versus what I'm going to say in response to that, or how I'm going to put in my 2 cents or my judgment or tell you what you should have done. No, the way that we connect through communication, and I do this with couples. I'm doing this for a college, a year-long program. I do this for corporations. Is teaching, creating a culture where we listen and connect and really strive to understand each other and get curious about each other.
Even if we may have different points of view, politically, religiously, or in any capacity, right? In terms of relationships, a lot of times too, I think kindness is, obviously the listening part, and this is a little bit outside of the kindness aspect, but there's that whole saying about men and women. So women like to talk back and forth, right? And we, I had this kind of day, or I have this issue, and then he'll be like, oh my gosh, and we just talk it out, right? And I'm a little bit more like a guy, I think, in that I'll help you. I want to help you fix the problem. And sometimes people say to me, or a boyfriend has said to me before, I don't need it to be fixed. I just want to tell you about it. So how can we learn to just listen instead of feeling like we need to solve the problem for the person?
Look, there's a whole lot of gender dynamics that's been taught that I've studied over the years to help, at least we're talking about in men-women relationships, hetero relationships. I think at our core, no matter what gender or what our preferences are or any of that, we all just want to feel heard, loved, and understood. I, as a man, if I'm having an issue with something and we're in a relationship, I don't really, unless I ask, I don't want you to come in and say, well, you should do it this way. But I want you to be there with me as my partner and, connect with me with the experience. I was going to say commiserate, but it doesn't necessarily have to go do that either. But I think my experience has been at the core we really just want to connect and know that we're not alone. You know, and so when we go to trying to fix and change and help our partner in that way,
yes,
we end up feeling more alone, generally, unless we ask for help.
Yes. Okay, and then if we go back to the topic of masculinity and kindness, or kindness just in general, sometimes the question is, remember the bracelets that said, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, if you struggle with being kind, sometimes if you have anger issues, or if you're like just annoyed with kind people or happy people, I think sometimes is that when you're in a space where you want to lash out, or if you are angry or whatever the situation is to take a breath.
Yeah.
Right? Take a breath, breathe, and then say, what is the kind reaction? What is a reaction that would benefit me internally, that's not going to increase my blood pressure, that's not going to make me more angry? How can I look at this situation with kind eyes? Is that something that works, or
Absolutely.
Is that,
yeah, well, it gets back to, you know, how do you want to be? And if I'm choosing to be kind, then I get to, like you said, take a breath and ask myself, what would kindness do?
Right.
And one of the things that I do, you know, for myself and with clients and with my kids is, you know, it really is about cultivating ourselves and our connection with ourself, our inner knowing. And so to the extent that I take 10 minutes a day and just sit in silence and stillness and breathe, then I know, you know, more quickly what would kindness do, or what I need to do in a given situation, or who I want to be in relationship with, or be in a work relationship with, or any of that. Because by tuning into ourselves and our inner knowing, like, we clear up all the stuff that's in the way.
Yes.
All the judgments and the, like, it's supposed to be this way, and our past programming and all of that.
My last question around that is, sometimes I feel that not saying something when things are heated, just being quiet a little bit, can also be kind in a way, instead of always having to have an opinion, or always having to come back and say, well, I feel this way, or I just say, well, that's great, or, you know, I'm proud of you, or I see your point, as opposed to having to share your point all the time.
Yeah, well, there is always the question of, I heard somebody else explain it, you know, what is me saying this going to, is it going to contribute? Is it going to make a difference? What is my intention behind sharing this? Is it just to satisfy my ego because I want to say something? Or
it was something like, is what I'm getting ready to say the truth and something else, and is it kind? I can't remember what the middle one was, but it was something about that truth, and I'm sure someone will remember and share with us.
In the comments.
Exactly. You work with couples, relationships, and individuals, not just with kindness, but obviously in relationships, and just dealing with themselves. And then you also have your book as well, that's still available. Yeah. Okay. And that has a little bit to do with the Me Too movement a bit, right?
Right. Well, it was inspired by the Me Too survivors who were sharing their stories online. You know, starting, I guess it's a year and a half, almost 2 years ago at this point. And because I've always worked with women, I've had, you know, friendships and relationships with women, I knew a lot of the stuff that was going on, and I knew a lot of their experiences, but the magnitude of the stories that was shared really struck me and was overwhelming. But then I saw a lot of men who didn't know that it was happening, and didn't know how to respond, and didn't know, you know, and they would do things like asserting their opinion or their judgment or whatever. And so through my interactions on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, I wanted to make a difference, because I was making a difference, and women were asking me, please write a book or teach a class or something. And so ultimately I wrote a book because I figured this is the best way to have it in one place, and it's only 76 pages, so it's a quick read.
Is it for men or women or both?
Well, both.
Okay.
You know, women who have read it have said, oh my God, I've never felt so understood, especially by a man.
Okay.
Men who have read it have said, wow, this is incredible. I had no idea this was going on. I break down, there's a chapter on listening, like we were talking about, listening for the experience. that has changed a lot of relationships. From what I've
Okay.
heard from the men who have read the book.
Okay, good. Well,
Yeah.
I love that aspect of it too. What's it called again for everybody
Yeah,
out there?
it's called Man's School: Relating with Women in the Me Too Era.
Okay, I'm sure it's on Amazon.
It is on Amazon.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they can also reach you on your website,
Yeah,
right?
coachwithmatthewsoloman.com.
Okay, Matthew, thanks so
Yeah,
much for
thank
coming
you.
in. We're
It's
actually at the
great.
KTLA studios. It's called the Boom Boom Room. It's right behind the studio where I do the news every day. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If there's anybody else you'd like for me to interview, just put it in the comments and we'll figure that out. Have a beautiful day, and don't
you.
forget, be kind.
Be kind.